Okay, I'm back at the house of Diane Gray, which is at 27 Smith Street.
Yep.
And we're back here to run a test on her grinder pump. And this is the test that you would run if you had a backup, but you did not have an alarm go off. And the reason why we're doing this test here is because it's exactly what happened with Diane a number of years ago. She did have a backup in her basement, and her alarm didn't go off. So Dan, why don't you tell us what happened?
Well, we had a 3-day power outage.
Yep.
And then when everything came back on, everything was running, I ran my dishwasher,
yep.
and I heard the water splashing out of a down in the basement sink.
Yep.
So I ran down, sure enough it was coming over, ran up, shut off the dishwasher, and called whoever we called at the time. Was this FR Mahony?
Would have been FR Mahony, yeah.
And they came that night, and they ran they couldn't find any problem with the grinder pump, so they ran a hose into it to make sure the pump was working. Okay. And it was.
Okay. Now, that's exactly what we're going to do right now. We're going to pretend like that's the same thing just happened today, but instead of calling Weston & Sampson right away, this is an alternative. The reason is because
we're all going to start calling you.
The town bylaw does not cover an accident which is not related to the grinder pump.
So I would have paid for that.
Potentially.
Okay.
Okay. I haven't heard of any examples of them charging people for call-outs that were not related to the grinder pump, but it could happen. So if you had a clog in your line going to your grinder pump, that would cause a backup in your basement. The alarm would not go off, and if you jump to the conclusion that your grinder pump has failed, you call Weston & Sampson. They could come out and find out it's okay, and then that's an unnecessary call out. Plus, you end up waiting around longer than you have to. Okay, can you turn that hose on full blast, and this hose, and spray it down into this thing? I'll keep running the camera, and you'll do this.
Can I clean these
exactly. Now, this is the tube that goes down into the wet well, and we're going to run this for 3 minutes. When I say, okay, go. That's fine, go. Okay, we're doing it at minute number 2. So the objective is to put about 10 gallons into the tank. Now, before we started this, we measured how long it took this hose, when it was on full blast, to make 10 gallons. And the answer was a little bit less than 3 minutes. So we started this at about the 2-minute mark. So by the time we get to the 5-minute mark on this video, we will have put in about 10 gallons, a little bit more possibly. And it takes 8 gallons. Even if the grinder pump were at the lowest level, it would only take 8 gallons to make it turn on. So by putting in 10 gallons, we're assured that the purpose of this test is to test if the grinder pump will run. Now, the way we're going to tell that the grinder pump is running is we're just going to listen for it, because it's going to make a noise. I find it hard to believe that if this pump didn't start running that we wouldn't hear it, because on mine I can hear it.
Right. So when we hear it start running, do I stop putting water in?
Yeah, that'll be like the test will be successful. We'll either wait until it runs or until we get to the 5-minute mark. Right now we're at 3 minutes, so we put about 3 gallons in, and so 4 gallons would be the average amount because it was halfway between. But it could be anywhere between the low and the high. It could have gone off, immediately, or it could take up to 3 minutes at this rate of water flow. Now, the reason why we have to add the water outside of the house is because, remember, there's a clog. We're pretending there's a clog in your line. Adding 10 gallons into your bathtub is all it's going to do is put more water into your basement.
Okay, there it goes.
There it goes. That was after about less than 2 minutes. Now you should be able to hear on this now that the pump is running. So all we did with this test was just to check to see whether the pump is operating.
And it did a good job.
And this is operating. So that means, in this case, since we're kind of pretending there was a clog, this would tell us there's no problem in the pump. And the fact that your sink is overflowing in your basement is a problem, but it's not related to the pump. Diane and I made a measurement in her basement, and we determined that the overflow of that sink is right about at this level, which means that sink, when the water level in her whole system starts rising, that's about a foot below the overflow here. So her house is susceptible to a backup. She's not going to get an overflow on her yard. That's never going to happen, because she's got a sink in her basement that's at a lower level than that, and that's where the water is going to start coming out. Now, if she gets a backup in her basement without an alarm, she has to first consider that there might just be a clog. This was what someone who didn't have a grinder pump would think. must be a clog. Now, people with a grinder pump, the first thing they're going to imagine is, oh, the grinder pump, that stupid grinder pump is probably screwed up. Okay, now, and that could very well be the case. But because there was no alarm, you first have to consider that there might be a clog. This also tells you it's very important to test the alarm yearly so that you'll know that your alarm is working, so you don't run into that situation. So I think that's it for today. This was a very successful test. And this is something that people who are in a similar situation could do. And this will first, it'll save you a lot of time because you don't have to wait for them to come out. You could find right away that the problem is in your plumbing and you need to call a plumber. And it could also save you money because you wouldn't have to worry about potentially being liable to calling out Weston and Sampson. Now, they'd send out 2 people. This could be an after-hours situation. You could literally be talking about a bill that is north of $600 for them just to come out and do something very simple like this and conclude there's not a problem. Nobody wants that. Town doesn't want it. Homeowners don't want it. Nobody would really want that. Okay?
You told them to run it down this pipe, right?
Exactly.
Because
do not run it into this other hole, because this other hole, it'll go directly into the dry well. Only one of the holes will go into the wet well. Okay, very good point. Okay, great. Okay, that's all for today.
That's what I couldn't remember.
Okay, great.
Where they put the water.
Okay.
So this was great for me.
Okay, good.